Alright, there we go. I had to reset my OBS for some reason because it was giving me an in-sync error. But anyway, forgive the messy hair. It's late at night. I've been sitting in my chair for a while. But as you can tell by the title, I just want to gush about God of War Ragnarok. I have not played it myself, no. But I have literally just now finished like an 18-hour video, which thankfully had no commentary. It was just pure gameplay, and as far as I can tell, unless they were really well hidden, there was no real jump cuts. Just watch someone play the game straight through. I know the gameplay because I've played every single God of War, including the previous one from 2018, and the gameplay is obviously largely the same. You can tell just by looking at it. So I have a pretty good understanding of how it feels just by watching it from that, even though it might be a little bit different due to different technicalities of like enhanced combat system since allegedly it's deeper. But so I can already judge the gameplay because the gameplay is super similar, if not a little bit better than the previous game. So the gameplay is solid because that was the best gameplay out of all of the God of Wars was 2018, and from what I've seen throughout this 18-hour experience, I did 9 of it yesterday and I just finished it today. It's fantastic. The gameplay is utterly fantastic. It is chef's kiss. Mwah. Perfecto. It is great. It is astoundingly great. I freaking love the combat and the gameplay, and it's just amazing. But anyway, that aside, like, Ragnarok is got to be the best God of War to date. Like, and I thought that about the previous game because I actually didn't get into God of War until like I think it was actually a little bit after the 2018 release date because it came out in like 2018. Or maybe it was. I think I got into God of War like I think roughly around the time 2018 got out. Like I bought it um before I got my PS4, and I think I still had my PS3 at the time, and I knew I was going to get a PS4 very soon, so I just bought the God of War 2018 in advance. Um no, cuz it was on sale, I believe, cuz I was in Nevada at the time. So and I went and did all the God of Wars on PS3. One, Chains of Olympus, all of it. Just one right after the other and binged it. And then I went to 2018. And so I did them all in a fairly short amount of time. And yes, and this is 2018 on steroids in the best way possible because like the combat is there, if only a bit more improved, if it is at all. But again, 2018 was fantastic. It didn't really need to be improved, in my opinion. But it looks to be improved from what I've seen. But that could just be me. But anyway, so that being said, the story is absolutely superb. Like I said, I've just been sitting here watching just 9 hours yesterday, 9 hours today. Just finished it, and I'm just sitting there trying to embrace it, but it's easier to critique it when you're just sitting there, you're not playing yourself, right? When you're playing it, sometimes you might miss some things because you're just, especially when you're engrossed in the gameplay, right? But I loved the story. I loved the dynamic of Kratos in this game, especially by the end, how he grew. I'm trying not to do spoilers because since it literally just came out basically. um so yeah, but anyway, but just how his journey ends, and just, oh my god, that ending with Kratos before the end credits was superb. Atreus growing in to be his own man, and just the resolution of it all, and just how amazing it was, and just getting to play as Atreus. I wouldn't call that a spoiler story wise, but yes, that is a thing. Um, but other than saying you get to play as Atreus, and it makes sense within the context of the story for certain bits. It's just, screw it. I'm gonna say spoilers, and I'm just gonna put spoiler alert in the description. Screw it. But just Atreus going to Asgard, and just how it looked, him climbing the wall, and then just Thor. It was kind of cool, he a little underutilized. I kind of wish they used Thor a little bit more in a badass way, like you know maybe kind of do something similar to Baldur, like in the other game. I know that'd be a bit repetitive. You're just doing the same thing except with a different god, but still, like would have been nice to get more of Thor. But maybe I'm just a sucker for Thor. I don't know, because I mean he's one of the coolest gods in Norse mythology, in my opinion. So there's that. But seriously, he's just so freaking cool in the game, especially in the first scene in the game. Damn near boss fight with Thor. Yeah, and I'm sure most of you guys can probably agree when I say this. Like, God of War 2018, when you first start that, and of course it's a little slow, the sad moment, aw, the ashes, and then the hunt, and then Baldur. And that opening sequence with Baldur's, I mean, granted, it was a bit of a tutorial because you learn how to use Spartan Rage and shit, but, like, oh my god. And then this game, holy shit balls. Fucking knocked that like, as far as tutorial sequences go. Well, I guess it's not really a tutorial because most people that play Ragnarok have played 2018, and of course there's a lot of God of War loyalists, that have been playing for a long time before me, because I'm pretty new actually, so I guess that's not really a tutorial section, because if you played 2018, you kind of knew what to do anyway. But even still, giving you that tutorial stuff, is nice. But anyways, that's besides the point. But just when you fight Thor, and just the power he feels, and just like when you clash your axe and his hammer, and you walk around him while they're just going at each other, and then the lightning free, just the whole, like, I thought Baldur was a badass opening boss fight, for the beginning of the game, and then fucking Ragnarok's like, hold my beer. Like, if the opening Baldur fight in the previous game is Doom, then the opening boss fight of Ragnarok is Doom Eternal. Any of you guys who have played Doom and Doom Eternal like myself, you know exactly what I mean. Just the level of badassness, the scale, just way enhanced, way up there. So that's my analogy to describe just the scaling of how much more amazing just the start of the game was, and it just awesome. And then throughout the game, it kind of drops a little bit, but that's to be expected. I think that's fair with any game, especially for people that really need to be gripped, like my parents, for example. If you don't grip them within a fairly short amount of time, they won't even entertain the rest of, well, since they're not gamers, I have to say a show. So like, you got to grip them. So for people that have that problem where they need to be gripped, Ragnarok, easy. Oh, you get gripped immediately. Like, it is so good. Like, in just like the whole thing with Atreus and the shape shifting, and just throughout the game, just yeah, like you said, I watched 9 hours yesterday and 9 hours today. So and I don't do scripts. I usually like to go based on my emotions, and usually if there's a very, very significant problem with the game, usually it'll stick in your head, usually, because I can be pretty picky when I want to be. Like, that hair is just awful right there. But yeah, whatever, we're just here casual. But it's just throughout the game, like how Kratos kind of, he's trying to avoid Ragnarok, but then it ends up happening, and just, and you see, and it's so cool because, like, especially later in the game when he finds out from the Norns that Heimdall is most likely going to kill Atreus, and that immediate father instinct, especially when you played the Greek saga and you know about Calliope, he ain't having that. And, like, after you make the weapon to deal with Heimdall, the spear, and you see Odin again, you see that brief momentary flash where you could see the old god of war in Kratos, where he literally threatens Odin, like, you want to see that god of war, like, keep pushing me. Because, right now, at least for until Heimdall dies, because obviously he dies because it's fucking Kratos, right? Like, you see that glimpse, like, it is all in. Like, I'm like, my son's life is top priority. I don't care the lengths that I get, which is true. Just like with Freya, or any parent, you go to great lengths to protect your kids, as any parent would when you love your child. So it's like, oh, oh god, I mean, like, if they really wanted to do a really bold story, that I'm kind of glad that they didn't, because Kratos has suffered enough and I love Kratos. But if they really wanted to do something crazy, they should have just freaking killed Atreus and just have him go God of War rage from the Greek saga. Just go Greek saga mode, and he just wrecks. It doesn't even need an army. He just wrecks house, because it's like he's already dealing with all the burden of everything that happened in Greece, bearing that, thinking he's a monster, trying to make, teach his son to be better, and then now he loses his son, and he's thinking of Calliope, and he's like, God damn it, not again, and he just loses his fucking mind, and he just storms Asgard, which I believe he could do. I believe with that level of anger, and with everything he's been through, and the fact he's fucking Kratos, I believe that would be one hell of a... It'd basically be God of War 3, just with better graphics and a better combat system, in my opinion. Well, I mean, that's kind of what this was, in a completely different way, in a Norse way, but in a good way. But yeah, just, Freya, oh god, I was so scared that we were gonna kill her because of how it ended in the previous game, but no, we end up winning her over, and by the end, she's good friend, at least pretty decent friends with Kratos, and it's just, oh... And I just loved throughout the story, you could feel the maturity and how the situations flip, because like in Vanaheim, I forget the exact words, but oh no, I remember now. Like in the first game, and when you go to Helheim, when Kratos goes to apologize for lashing out when he finds out Freya's a god, and she says, no need to explain, not to me, not for that. And then in this game, it's the reverse. Kratos, is expecting her to fight him now that he's freed her from Odin's curse, shit, right? Because she couldn't leave the realms, and there's a, but play the game. I'm not going to go into nitpicky details, just kind of give an overview of like key moments that I think really showcase just the character development, I think, and just how the situations have changed, and just, and the respect these characters have for one another, even if they have a few spouts here and there, which is nature. People in real life do that, and it's so good, because like Freya gets what she wants, she's free, and they have a moment of like, do I forgive Kratos or do I go and kill him for what happened to my son Baldur, right, in the previous game. And she goes on a little mini speech about like, I can't kill you, but I can't forgive you, because again, Ragnarok, and there's bigger stakes. By now she's calmed down enough to be like, I do need him. And and Kratos obviously, and I loved, as you go through the journey, when she's a bird, again, play the game for context, but she's a bird watching you, and you're having heart to hearts as you're going to the objective to free her from the curse. Like, Kratos conveys his past about Calliope, and I think that's part of it, is Freya understands like where Kratos came from, and it's like, killing his own family, and it's like, and I am, and me personally, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I honestly felt like, just with the emotion that was conveyed and her tone of voice and everything, it honestly felt like Freya for a moment, if only from the shock, forgot her anger about Kratos and what happened to Baldur, and just looked at like how she felt about Baldur, and then magnifying that, and thinking to herself like, oh, it's probably worse for him because he's the one who dealt the final blow, not just to his kid but his wife. that you know what I mean, and it's like and it's like obviously there's always going to be that part of Freya, and she says that she can't forgive him, but I think that story, at least in some part, really was at least some factor in the fact Ragnarok's around the corner and she needs him. But I think that was a pretty big part in why by the end that they kind of grew past that, because it honestly feels like that they're fairly close now, like kind of, I mean, maybe not quite the way it was in the previous game, but it resolutes in such a very satisfying way between these two characters. And it was just so good to see the roles flipped, where Kratos says it to her in that moment in Vanaheim. No need to explain. And I was like, oh my god, that's amazing, because it works. In my opinion, it worked so well, especially with the build up and the heart to heart they were having with each other, and Kratos just and it was so nice. Especially considering that had to be hard for Kratos for a variety of reasons. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. And it was such an amazing bonding moment between these two characters, which were my two characters. Like Freya and Kratos were my favorite characters in the previous game. Baldur couldn't give a shit about, because he was, I mean, I understood his motivations, especially by the end, but he was just a boss fight that I was trying to get through. I didn't feel a lot for Baldur, and then Thor doesn't show up, and none of the Aesir gods except for Magni and Modi really show up, and they die super quick. You don't really get to know them. Like the first one was literally, Dad of War, basically, the previous game. It was all about the journey to Jotunheim and them overcoming their obstacles. It wasn't really about, it was a story between father and son, really. And it executed that perfectly, in my opinion, just because how they evolved throughout the story. It was great. It was amazing. Fantastic. But in this game, they really develop a bunch of the other characters, like, again, the relationship between Kratos and Freya, especially how it ends. Oh my god, thank you, Santa Monica, thank you, Sony. You gave me exactly what I wanted. I don't think I could have asked for a better scenario, because I was really scared we were going to have to kill Freya. I was so scared. But no, we good. We fucking good. Thank you. And thank you for not doing a basic bitch way like I've seen in other games where, like, we're like, oh, they're friends again, but the reason is kind of half-assed, and it makes you kind of takes away from what you want. It's like, I mean, this is what I want, but if you're gonna do it right. It don't feel, and you can't enjoy it. You know what I mean? I'm sure you guys have had that experience, but this is not that. In my opinion, it worked so well. I think I've gushed enough about the dynamic between Kratos and Freya, so I'm gonna move on from that. And just Mimir is obviously Mimir. Enough said there. Like, who doesn't love Mimir unless you genuinely don't like him? But I like Mimir, And then Brock and Sindri, like, you get to learn more about them. And poor Brock. Enough said right there. I mean, just but you learn more about them and what happens and the backstory, and I still don't care about them too terribly much, mostly because, like, yeah, they were cool in the other game, and they're still cool here, but they're not, you know what I mean? Like, they're, in my opinion, well and truly side characters. So, but they're still awesome, and just. The story, how it ends for those two, I'm really sad about, but you can't have a happy ending for everyone, and some people might disagree with this, but out of everyone, I'm glad that the lack thereof of a happy ending happened to those two rather than everyone else. That's my opinion. Take with that what you will, but yeah, and then just. And and then even the same thing with Atreus at one point, like, later in the game, like, Atreus tells his dad to be better when, Kratos admits that he's kind of falling back into his old ways, and they're having a heart-to-heart, And Atreus, kind of has his own heart-to-heart, saying, like, without you, I will admit I've been overconfident. And they have that really nice heart-to-heart where the roles are flipped. It's like Atreus reminding him to be better rather than Kratos trying to you know what I mean? It's such a nice flip, and again, in the context of what has happened up to that point, like for the two of them, it works. Like I really, and it also it does a great job of showing that despite some errors, because he's still fairly young, and and so he's going to make some mistakes as anyone does. It shows that Atreus has matured quite a bit, especially between the last game from the last game, and it's like I really like that. They show, in my opinion, some pretty decently good character development between them all, and and those are the two main people, and then Brock and Sindri are just kind of. I mean, they are important to the story, but compared to everyone else, I was gonna say they're kind of just there, but no, they do have some pretty significant moments actually through. So I mean, they're the least significant out of everyone significant, I guess you could say, at least in my opinion. But that's excluding the obvious. They upgrade your shit if you have the resources. So that not including that, they're they are important to the story, but they're not as important as some other people, I would argue, if only at least in the development wise, and just it's hard to explain, but that might just be a matter of opinion. A lot of these things are a matter of opinion to begin with. But and then just the new characters, like I really enjoyed the new characters. Like thor Thor was awesome, even if he was, in my opinion, a little underutilized. But when you and then they had to go and ruin him at the end. And again, a spoiler alert, obviously, as in the description. So if you're still here, you obviously either have played the game or you just don't give a crap, and you want a fairly abbreviated version of what happened. Well, at the very end of the game, Thor fucking dies, and it's not by you. And I was super sad, because I kind of wish that Thor stayed alive, because Thor had the potential, especially if they made a third game, which I know they're not. This is the end of the Norse arc, but seriously, it would have been nice for Thor to survive. I would have loved like an end game where Thor survives, and because of now Odin is gone and everything's kind of settling down, Kratos and him kind of have like a heart to heart or something. Maybe not a heart to heart, but you know what I mean. And I would love to see, like, at the very end, Atreus goes off on a journey. So that's the very ending scene of the game. Atreus and Kratos part ways after having a nice heart to heart, and you know and then now you're stuck with Freya if you want to do the side content in the game, which I love. I love being able to have Freya in your party. I fucking lost my mind when that happened. It was amazing. But it would have been nice to add like a swap feature, like like you could have had Thor, and I would love to see just the random Thor Kratos talks, like as they share stories, like Kratos shares some stories from back in the Sparta days, and then Thor shares some stories from the giant era, because obviously times have changed. Odin's gone. This is just history. Like Kratos and Thor, if everything calmed down, I feel like it would be logical enough to where they could tell these stories and it wouldn't matter. And I would love to see that personally. And I think that's a missed opportunity. But that's a very nitpicky thing that would have been nice to have. And all you would have really had to do is just make sure Thor survives. Like, you could have had the entire game be the same and just find a way for him to survive, or maybe change a little bit of the ending ever so slightly, and you probably could have made that happen. But it's not a significant of enough change where it really diminishes the overall story quality, because it's fantastic. So that's a minor gripe, but nothing significant. It doesn't dock it points or anything. It's just one of those, like, I would like for this to happen as like a bonus kind of a thing. But it was sad. And then Sif was nice, especially if you like Norse mythology. I'm not overly versed in Norse mythology. I like to think I'm a lot more versed in Greek mythology, if only in part because there's more God of War games around the Greek mythology, and also because I've always loved Greek mythology ever since I was little. It's just been a thing. And of course in high school, at least where I was, we actually had to do a section in English class about it. So There you go. There you go. But yeah, it was just so cool to be for them to expand the Norse mythos, even if only if it's God of Warified, you know. It was just so cool, and just Sif was kind of cool, but not really a major player. I mean, Odin was kind of cool in his own way, but he I will admit he's not as it's hard to explain. I have mixed feelings about Odin. I mean, like, on one hand, like, considering everything up to the ending, because Odin doesn't really fight, and he's obsessed with this mask and blah blah blah, and he's obsessed with knowledge, and maybe a bit too obsessed to the point where he sacrifices family and stuff. Like, he's slightly crazy, but not overly crazy to the point where he's like it's weird. For me, it's kind of hard to explain. And even if I wrote a script, I don't think I'd be able to properly explain it. But in that sense, they made a really interesting character, because I was always interested in his bits of the game where you see him, and but he's in the game so little. It's kind of like you talk to him, he sends you on a mission, you leave, and then you come back, talk to him a little, and it's largely Kratos and Atreus, and then some of the other side characters. Odin doesn't really make a massive appearance in it. Um, and because I have mixed feelings about him, that's actually a good thing. Because if he was a better character, I would have felt like he's underutilized. But if he was a worse character, I wouldn't want him in the game at all. So, and since I'm kind of in the middle, I think he actually shows up well balanced. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's just kind of my thing about it. And yeah, Odin's cool enough, and just yeah. And then Angerboda. Angerboda was really cool. I loved the Ironwood section. I mean, despite obviously some enemies showing up, which makes sense, obviously, but just the whole shock factor, because I didn't see that coming, and just meeting Angerboda, and just how Atreus and her kind of got along, and it was just a nice change of pace from dad of boy, like it is for pretty much most of the rest of the game. And of course the previous game where it's just Kratos and Atreus the whole damn game, and it's just, and Kratos obviously is Kratos, he's a bit more serious, you know what I mean? And Angerboda, kind of took the tension away for that brief little bit for the most part, it was a really nice section. And just the laughs and stuff, like, really cool section. It really was. Um, and then the Asgard sections was really cool, like meeting Thor's daughter Thrud, love Thrud. Just there's something about her that's just so cool. Like the moment you see her, you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna, and just like she's super nice, even like really nice to Loki, like right out of the gate, pretty much. Even though she kind of scares him at first, which I thought was hilarious, but then when she kind of says, it's good that we, when she drops her sword and says, "This is your room, enjoy," and she has a grin on her face, it looks like, but it's kind of hard to tell because of the camera angle, but it looks like she has a grin on her face, and it's just like it, and then like your first mission together in Helheim, like Atreus is honest. Like he's speaking his mind, which I kind of think, considering, like, I think that was a bit risky, all things considered. I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I would have done that if I was in his position, but whatever. And he's like, very honest to Thrud about what he's heard about Odin and how he's caused all of these things, and she obviously doesn't know and doesn't believe it. It's her grandfather, and even though they kind of have a bit of a rough patch in the sense of like, let's stop talking with, and she's getting angry, which is fair. You're basically talking shit about her grandfather that she loves. That's fair. I think we can all understand that. But for the most part, they don't let it affect their relationship. They just agree to disagree and move on, it feels like. And considering Atreus at the time is basically just trying to be a spy, or maybe not so much a spy at that point in the game, because he kind of gave up on that kind of. but he's still trying to keep Odin close and everything. He's trying to make everyone happy and stuff. And it's just and it just it felt like there was a really nice dynamic with Thrud and Atreus. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me that was like, I really hope. I know they're not. I don't think they're gonna make another Norse game because they said this is the last one. But like, if they ever do comics or like a novel that takes place after Ragnarok, like like some adventure stories or whatever, I personally and I know enough about my Norse mythology where, like, in the normal Norse mythology, if memory serves, Loki gets with Angrboda, right? I could be wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But from my understanding, that in the normal Norse mythology, like not the God of War mythology, but the proper Norse. And again, please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But he gets with Angrboda. But in this game, in my opinion, comparing Angrboda with Thrud, if they're gonna give him a romance interest at all, I really hope it's Thrud. Because like, at least for me personally, like, Angrboda gives off that really nice, like, friendly feel. Like we just get along, we got good chemistry and we mix and we're just friends. Which I know in theory can evolve to be much more, but Thrud felt different. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if they ever, whether it be in comics or books or whatever, if they expand on what's here, um, it would be nice if they're gonna give him a romance interest. I think they should go with Thrud. You know, because to me, I feel like they have a more solid of a bond that they can build off of than Angrboda. Because Angrboda is basically just everything sunshine and rainbows. Everything works out great when with her, but like with Thrud, there were some rough patches, and then at the ending of the game, if it wasn't for her mom coming out, Thrud might have killed Atreus, maybe, and and then when she comes out and explains it, and Thrud realizes that Odin really is off the rails, and you know, and it makes her rethink everything, and I feel like, and now that Ragnarok is either on the other side of it now, and they're done with it, and Ragnarok's over. I feel like that experience in these rough patches would normally make a really tough bond, and maybe that's just from my personal experience because I've had relationships in real life where yes, I've had some that we've had no issues, no arguments, no nothing. My best friend of 10 years, or we've had literally no issues ever, none. But then I have other friends that I've known just as long where we've gone through a number of rough patches and we're still friends, and and we've been through some serious rough patches, mind you, like proper, like, friend killing, damn near friend killing rough patches, and we managed to come out on the other side. So as someone who's been on both sides, like, I feel like that's, well, it depends on the person. Some people just click so damn well, and if you want to go that route with Angrboda, then fine, okay, cool. But me personally, if only from a story perspective, it's more satisfying to go with Thrud, is what I'm saying, because they've had a lot to work on, and they're still great friends despite the weirdness that has been the game. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to some people. If not, then okay. But I think if they're gonna expand on that aspect of Atreus, please, for the love of God, do Thrud, because Thrud is just cool. She's the coolest addition in the game, in my opinion. Like, she's awesome. She's such a badass. And I gotta admit, her art, like, just how she's designed is really cool too. Like just her armor style, her swords, even the freaking hair, it just works. Like, she's just awesome. She's just an awesome character, just all around, in my opinion. So so when you're doing the Asgard sections, when you're with her anyway, like, it makes the Asgard sections feel so awesome until you end up doing a mission without her, and you're like, oh. but then you end up having Thor with you, you know, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Even though until the last mission, and even then during the last mission, he's kind of like, eh. So, you know, Thor's just kind of there in the mission just for the buddy mechanic. Like he doesn't, yeah, it's yeah, but yeah, like overall, it was a fantastic game to watch, and since I have the benefit of knowing how the gameplay feels from playing a lot, well, I've only ever done one playthrough of the first of the previous God of War, but I got how many hours did I put in? I had to I want to say 30 hours or something, or I don't know. It was a number of hours, and the whole time, especially when you get the Blades of Chaos, it felt so good. So I was able to picture that when I was watching the fight scenes. I can kind of, I couldn't feel it, but I could feel it, if that makes sense. So I had a fairly nice experience watching the game without any commentary whatsoever. Um, so yeah, like my overall view is, aside from maybe some nitpicky things, but then again, if you nitpick hard enough, you can always find something that you wish was different. That's universal with pretty much everything. So aside from some really small nitpicks, I would say the game is fucking flawless. I thoroughly enjoyed the 18-hour watch experience. Would have been better to play it for sure, and just again, just the addition of the characters, some of them like Thor being a tad bit underutilized. Um, you know, Thrud was awesome. Thor was amazing despite being underutilized, but when he was there, except for the missions as Atreus, where he just kind of talked shit and he just was. Well, the cutscene, basically the boss fights and the cutscenes, he was pretty awesome in, but the gameplay with Atreus was a little different, not quite as cool. But largely Thor was amazing, especially in the opening with that kick ass opening boss fight. Um, at the distances, the graphics obviously look just as good, if not arguably more beautiful than the previous game did, especially when you get to Asgard or um I can't pronounce it, the Dwarf World, Stiffelheim or whatever, or it's just, I can't pronounce it, but like the distances, and you just see the great, it just is such a beautiful game, from just the design of it, just the world, the gameplay, the story. The game is flawless. And to be quite honest with you, if they were to end the God of War series here, like just end it, no more. We're not going to Egypt, even though Egypt would be fucking awesome, because I also love Egyptian mythology. I have a little bit of a thing from that, mostly because of the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser. But still, like, I have a thing for that too, and I've read some Egyptian mythology because I had a mythology class in college. So I know a little bit about that. That would be awesome. So while, but the thing for me is like, this this was probably the best way you could end a series. This game, in my honest to God opinion, is the best God of War in pretty much every aspect you can think of. This is a matter of opinion. Some people are different. I remember playing with a guy on For Honor who said God of War 2018 sucked because of how different it was from the other games, and it didn't feel like God of War, and that's a fair point. I personally didn't feel the same way. I said that the differences make sense within the context of Kratos changing, and he even said Kratos feels nerfed, and I went, well, he technically is nerfed, but he's not nerfed. It's a pseudo nerf, and I explained the lore of, like, a little bit of just how Kratos is trying not to be the monster he was, and they basically do, in my opinion, a very good job of telling you without directly telling you that he's basically holding back in every fight, and so it's like there's in-game reason for that, because he's trying to teach his son to be better, and it's like, this is a different Kratos. Like, we've already been through what, God of War 1, Chains of Olympus. Well, technically, chronologically, I believe it goes Chains of Olympus, God of War 1, Ghost of Sparta, 2, and then 3. And that's just in the Greek saga. That's 5 games of just straight tragic. Oh, and Ascension. Never mind, I forgot Ascension. Ascension is, I believe, the first one. Before Chains of Olympus. So 6 games in the Greek saga. 6 games of just nothing but suffering and brutality. And now he's trying to turn over a new leaf. I think after 6 games, you can change and do something different. I think you're well and truly deserve that at that point, especially if all 6 games were fairly good. They weren't crap. They were all pretty good in my opinion. I enjoyed all 6 of them. So there we go. So, like, unless they make a really fantastic script for the next game to justify it being somewhere else, because they've already said the Norse saga is done, from my understanding, which would make sense considering you literally just done Ragnarok, which is the end all be all of Norse mythology, as far if my memory serves. I mean, there's not really much you can do there, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I don't know, but honestly, I'm content with them just end the series here, because Kratos is at a point now where his story is over. Like, yes, Atreus can have his own journeys and he can go find the giants, but Odin's gone. All of the giants' enemies are gone. I don't think there's much of a story there. I mean, I think it's safe to assume that even though it takes time, he finds them all and everything goes right as rain. And even if they don't, I mean, it's not like they're that much worse for wear than they are now, because everyone assumes they're all dead anyway, except for Atreus and Angrboda, basically, and then Kratos, because, the ending. But it's not like they're worse for wear if everything goes south. But I really, like I said, unless they make an amazing script for a next game, I hope they don't make another one, because this was a fantastic ending. Like, Kratos did everything he did in the 6 games, and then came to the Norse realms, did everything in the 2018 game, and now in Ragnarok, and just, Odin's done. Everyone loves Kratos for saving him from Odin. Basically, Atreus is happy. Everyone survives, and especially with that shrine that Kratos found at the very end of the game, after Atreus basically leaves, and he looks at the back of the shrine and he saws the part where Faye basically showed Kratos up on like a pillar, and people were bowing to him, and you could see in Kratos's, like, just, you could hear in his voice, because obviously, especially if you have headsets, because I was watching the whole experience with this headset, and it's like he's kind of tearing up a little bit, like he's kind of sniffling, and it's like, and then and you could tell by how he talks to Freya about what he saw, even though if he's very brief with it, like it's he didn't expect this. And especially when earlier in the game, when they see people praying Kratos sees people praying for him on that shrine, it like earlier in the game, Odin says, "Have you ever had anyone pray for you or anything?" Which believe he did in that brief period where he was the god of war in Greek, but that was very short lived. And I think this is implied that, that he's grown beyond, like how I interpret it is like he's grown beyond that everything that happened after the Greek saga, and just how he's been trying to raise his kid and be better. And to me, it's kind of like symbolism, at least this is how I interpreted it, that, like, he went to Ragnarok, but he did not want it. This wasn't like the other games where he went to war with the Olympus, out of anger, which was justifiable considering what happened to his family and the gods being dicks to him. Which I, for the most part, agreed with Kratos. Even though he was a bit brutal with it, I understood his motivations, and it's kind of relatable. I think that's why we all like Kratos. And in this series, it's like he has done all that. He's got his vengeance. He knows where it leads. It didn't make it better, and he has like a certain level of wisdom. And he goes into this with almost the exact opposite mindset. Like, he's doing this because he needs to. He's not doing it because he wants to. And it's just, and he can be that benevolent figure. And it's, you know, it's like it's come full circle, I guess, in a way, for lack of a better way to explain it. It's just like he can be that god that he could have been back then if it wasn't for the Olympus gods being idiots between taking his brother, tricking him to kill his family, and then just kind of being dicks to him overall, in various ways other than that, you know, and just driving him to borderline madness, you know. That's a very, very brief, you know, interpretation, like a super simplified interpretation of the six games, but still. Um, you know, and it's just, this feels like it needs to be the end. I honest to God do not think you can have a better fucking ending for Kratos. If you want to make more God of War games, okay, fine. I just hope that the scripts are good, especially if you like if you're gonna do it. Like again, Kratos has now had what, 8 games, not including comics and all that crap. Like he's had 8 games. I think it's time for Kratos to retire and just have him be that benevolent god figure that saved the 8 realms now from Odin, and just have him have his ending where he has finally gotten life he deserved. He is truly grown beyond the monstrous ways that he's did in the Greek saga. Like he is finally over that now. Like it still haunts him in a way, but he's over that. He's better now. And have the rest of the saga, if you're gonna do it, with Atreus. And it makes sense. He's young, and like he was really tempted for a while, you know, to go after the source of infinite knowledge. I mean, that didn't pan out the way that he wanted to, and considering what was happening, I understand why he chose against it. But it wouldn't surprise me if he really wanted to gain knowledge. You know, and considering that Atreus is very young and he's a freaking demigod and he's probably gonna live a long while, it wouldn't surprise me if like he wanted to go travel. Like have the next God of War, if you're not gonna set it in Norse mythology, have it be Atreus. Have him travel to, I don't know, Egypt. I don't know. Egypt, like again, I don't know. We've already established that there's multiple pantheons in existence. You can have the whole shebang. You know, have him go to Egypt, you know, to study, and then he get, I don't know, I don't like, hell, you could do the God of War 2018 route where he's just over there studying and learning, and because he's a god and he gives off god energy or something, the gods of that realm know, and they start to screw with him, and he has to defend himself. And then maybe he finds out about a bigger plot, and then he basically has to destroy a pantheon. Because let's be honest, that's what the whole point of God of War is. You're killing gods. You know, like I don't know. My point is that Kratos, but it's at the point now where Kratos' story really should end here. He's got his resolution. He's grown past that. He is a benevolent god now. He's grown past his monstrous ways. He's in some sense atoned for it because he's saved the 8 realms from Odin being a dick, you know. And he's raised an amazing son, and even though his wife is gone and Atreus is kind of becoming an adult, moving out, Kratos can be happy with that. Like, he can be at peace with everything, with how everything is. Like, just end Kratos' story here unless you have a damn fine script. I know I've probably said this multiple times, but I cannot emphasize this enough because of how this is such a good ending for Kratos, in my honest to God opinion. This should be the end of God of War. Like, 8 games now. Unless you want to make Atreus the main character, which I would be okay with. I like Atreus as a character. There's enough character development there between the 2 games that he's in where I would be okay with that. That would be interesting. You know, have Mimir on the back of his head, and you can bring Atreus and Mimir to other lands if you're gonna do more God of Wars. If you're gonna do more God of Wars, shift it to Atreus. Pass the torch to him. Don't do Kratos anymore. Because we've kind of established now that at this point, considering he's now borderline destroyed 2 pantheons now, that he's basically OP. We've kind of established this now. He's overpowered. Because that's twice now in two different realms where he's been fated to die and he just don't fucking die. So yeah, he's basically now well and truly, if he wasn't before, he is now truly, in my opinion, become OP level territory. He's the person you bring in. It's like Ghost Rider in Agents of Shield. For those of you that have seen season 4 of Agents of Shield, it's like you don't bring him in unless you wrote in a character that specifically logically cannot be beat without him. Like, you don't just bring Ghost Rider in to take out enemies that are way below his level. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have a significant stake. You don't just, you know what I mean? You don't just bring in Kratos for no reason unless he needs to be there. Like, he's had 8 games. Let him retire. That might be a bad analogy, but seriously, just give Kratos his rest. Like, and I will admit, I'm partially skizz. Once you hit a certain level of awesomeness, like, it's usually really hard to keep that level, let alone surpass it. And I'm kind of at that point now where I really do not think that they can make a better God of War than this. This was such a fantastic experience. Like, oh god, just seriously, please, just end it here. So that way, for those of us like myself who have played the Greek saga and then we come here, we can be like, Kratos, you finally got the ending you deserved. Because he got screwed in Greece, let's be honest. He got royally screwed. He was just getting screwed from day one. And, like, now he's at a place where he's got friends and everything, and he can be happy, and he can have the peace that he wants. Like, yeah. I have rambled on too much. That's probably part of the reason why I should consider scripts. But then again, I always think raw emotion conveys it better than just reading off a script. I always like, because your passion will take over, and if you're talking about something for ages, it really shows. Rather than just giving detailed points in like a 15-minute video and leaving. I feel like even if I'm reciting some points because I'm just excited and I'm hyped, at least it shows. Because that's why you play games, like, especially when you're waiting for something you pre-ordered, you want to feel the excitement. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, I think I have overstayed my welcome, considering we're at like 52 minutes and now. So I am sorry for those of you that this probably could have been cut down way short. It's just so good. Anyway, like, if I had to give this a rating, this is an easy 10 out of 10 experience. In my honest to God opinion, this is legendary, top tier shit. Just end it here so that way people like myself, or any new God of War fans that haven't played any of them and they decide to get into it, can go from the Greek saga and then come here and have such an amazing ending with Ragnarok. Like, a fantastic end to an amazing saga. Like, just... Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. And for those of you that don't have the game, one, I advise you to go get it as soon as you can, if you can afford it. But if you can't, obviously wait till the sale. And if you're really like myself and you're impatient and you can't wait to see the game until you can get it yourself, then I will have a link in the description below of the video that I watched, which will have no commentary. It'll just be 18 hours straight of just the game. So that way you guys can enjoy it and sit back and relax. I mean, yes, you are going to have to put up with the entirety of the gameplay. That's going to mean some combat sections that might not have any story. Obviously, them going and upgrading their armor. But then again, those sections are fairly short. And if you really want to pass those sections, because that's kind of what I resorted to very late, probably in the last few hours, I would say probably like this, not so much yesterday, but today, I was kind of at the point where it's like, well, I have a pretty solid understanding of the combat of this game because I played the other game and it's largely the same. I just want the story. So I would just kind of skip past the combat, But I know from playing the other game and from seeing the other 9 hours from yesterday that there are some story bits that are in the gameplay. Like when you're going to your destination, you'll be talking with, like Freya, for example, when they're opening up when he's opening up about Calliope. Like that's very important for the dynamic. So I know there's some stuff there. So it's kind of just like, skip just enough ahead to where the combat's over, and then just watch them walk to their journey so you can enjoy the scenery. That, and just or fast forward through the upgrading armor, because that's not really that important, because that's a gameplay thing, not so much of a story thing. So, and since there's a decent amount of story stuff in the gameplay itself when you're going to your destination, like I wouldn't watch a video that is just cutscenes only, because then you're gonna miss some pretty crucial, in my opinion, some decently crucial parts of like character development, specifically with Kratos and Freya and Vanaheim, which is the main thing. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, 55 minutes now. I'm sorry. Way overboard on this, but I'm just having a good time talking about it. It was such a good experience. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys like I said, if you guys are too impatient and you can't wait till you get the game like myself, there's a link in the description to the video that I watched. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.